Good morning, everybody. We are live. I am still in the little office, hopefully for the last day today, and then we can go back to my usual office space. Alright, let's have a look at what's going on. So yesterday I did do a couple of attempts at that short in copper that I was talking about towards the end of the stream. So where is that day? There we go. So I ended up, so as you can see, I had a couple of attempts and then finally that profit. I just love this journal. It's like so amazing. Rita is here. Way. Hello. Very good to see you on here. Okay. Let me just have a look at what we need to do. If there's anything. Okay. That's fine. So I'm looking around the markets right now. Everything is still kind of range bound at the moment. Copper is opening inside value. So if you can see, this is the value from yesterday with the extended lines. And we're just kind of bouncing up and down without too much clear direction. So I want to allow that to develop a little bit before we do anything with copper. I do have DAX on here as well. I know that we don't have it yet, but you know, we will at some point. Right now there's a possibility for some failed auction there, so I'm going to keep an eye on that for some of my personal things. Dow is also broken out to the downside. Left some single prints, but it's currently trying to close out those single prints. So we do have a gap down. When I say gap down, I mean gap down in relation to the value area from yesterday, not necessarily from yesterday's close. So that could be a possibility too. I don't like trading when we're still stuck inside the initial bounce because that tends to be super quiet. Gold is actually opened slightly above value, and it is trying to touch the London value high. That could be a good area for longs. Let's have a look at what's going on the daily chart on gold, because that was a pretty good mover yesterday. Alright, so it does look like we're reversing higher. I suppose we made a new high here. The trend is still strong, and like I said yesterday, this is technically in the middle of nowhere, but because we've now created a little basing area, a little demand area, that could mean that we have some potential for a further upside movement. So we'll see. So as you can see, when I'm doing like multiple products, I'm not going, oh, I'm going to pop a trade here, I'm going to pop a trade there, I'm going to pop a trade there. No, I'm looking for which one of all of these has the best sort of outlook, the strongest level, a nice moderate imbalance on the day. Trying to figure out market states. And Brett Steenbugger actually has a very nice way to put this. It's instead of us looking for trades, we want to look for understanding first before we decide to get involved. So you're looking at, can you explain to yourself why a trade would be logical at this particular level in this product? And for now we have to stay patient. So there's a couple of options in YM now that it's, let me make that bigger. So YM is leaving those single prints to the downside, and it kind of tried to go higher, but it did not quite make it. There is a couple of setups that are possible here now. So either a sustained auction down using the single prints as a way to limit risk. So that is definitely a possibility. The problem is around about this time, the momentum can sometimes pick up to the opposite side, almost like a fake out. They looked for business below the initial balance, and then they kind of reverse it. So it's not a bad idea to maybe give it a little bit more time here so that we can have some more information, because I don't like the fact that there's a base on a 5-minute chart. If this was a true directional move, we shouldn't really see a base. So that's kind of making me a little bit on the fence of whether I should go with a momentum trade. And we are in summer trading. Like yesterday there was movement, but most of the products were kind of range bound. Even crude oil, it went all the way down to average session range low and then went all the way back up. So this is the hallmark of summer trading. And the strongest level that we have here out of all of these products is gold, because it's just above its value high. There's some wicks, buying wicks that keep happening, which might mean a creation of a new area where it bounces. So maybe gold should be our focus for today. Again, like always, two scenarios are possible. If this value high continues to be supportive, like with these wicks, we could run a value high reversal and bounce for a continuation trade upside. Now, if this breaks down and we end up closing the next 30-minute candle inside the value area from yesterday, that could open up the potential for that special situation play that me and Hogue are talking about sometimes. And that's a momentum trade. So what I would expect to see there is for the market to break the initial bounce low to the downside, subsequently potentially close inside value. My entry would be at ideally at the break of the initial bounce low. And then we have enough space down to the average session range and down to the value area low. Those two could be our targets. So that's to the downside. Now, if we reject this area, if it continues to be supportive, I would then be looking for the average session range London high, which is currently located at 2426.7. Isn't that a nice number? 2426.7. What is volatile to trade during London Open? Nothing. London Open is really not volatile at all. Like it's more lively than the Asian session, but if you're comparing like New York Open to London Open, you're gonna be in a bit of a surprise moment where you're like, well, why isn't anything moving? Because it's London. Why I'm here slightly later, because there's not a lot that happens on like the vast majority of the days. You sit there and you're like, right, open, and you're like, and what's happening? Especially if you're somebody who's used to trading the New York session, and then you expect the similar kind of fireworks and MOO coming in, everything is like moving, it's crazy. It's not like that in London. London is like, calm, everyone's a bit hungover. Everything is moving slowly. So this is why I like to give it time to develop, and I certainly don't want to be getting involved before we see where exactly they're going to take it, and especially not if we're opening inside balance like we are in copper. So copper has been something that I've been focusing on over the last 10 days or whenever we started this London session. But yeah, today I think gold might be the one to focus on. Let me just get my little timer candle thingy, candle timer, because I like to know how many minutes I've got until we finish. Alright, so Michael wants to know, today platinum moved a bit finally. Was there a chance to catch it? Hindsight. Well, I mean, we have to start with hindsight analysis because that's how we learn, right? So you have to see what actually happened and whether that can be a repeatable pattern. So let's have a look. It might take me a couple of minutes to get platinum out because I don't think I've got it ready. No, so I don't. Alright. So let me try to do that. And also, some of the metals, I think they're going to be rolling into the next front month by Friday. Especially gold. And gold is actually rolling into the December contract, not into the next one. That's something that gold likes to do. It likes to skip over some months and then go straight to the December one. Let's undock this. Here's platinum. Let's have a look. Alright, so this would have been a tough one to take, and actually I would fade this going with the move. So for now, we have an attempted value rejection. So we opened inside value in balance. I don't know what happened during Tokyo a little bit, but I wouldn't bank on platinum being super lively during Tokyo. So it had a neutral day and then it sort of popped off into a bit of an upside move. Now we have open inside value, so in balance, right? We are in balance. On the vast majority of the days, statistically, when we have this sort of an outlook, we typically have an attempted move outside of value, and then the market makers pull it back inside it. So I actually like doing failed auctions on days like this. And sure, sometimes it just keeps going, but those are rare. You know, that's going to happen maybe about 10 to 15% of the time, where the value rejection actually brings you a really, really nice move. For the majority of the other times, what you're going to find is that it looks like it's going, and then it slows down, the volume drops off, and then we go straight back into the value area. We have some levels here. I have the average session range high, just above the initial balance, and just below the initial balance. So yeah, to me this might be a fade opportunity. Let's see what the price action looks like on some lower time frames. Let me see if I can open my Ninja Trader, because I do like those equi-volume candles for this purpose. And then over there I just have the 9 EMA and overnight VWAP just to give me a little bit of a feel of how far we've come away from overnight averages. Let's see if I'm gonna break the internet here. All right, let's have a look. Jesse James, D, would you buy those on ES or NQ? Probably neither for London session. ES, I only really trade towards the end of the day, like for power hour. And even though I've called out some very good trades for the house account, it's not the product that I normally use during London, and partly it's because it just doesn't move. Like the majority of the days on NQ and London, they have a very, very small range, and you're going to be sitting there watching paint dry for quite a while. Furthermore, we have some geopolitical risks. So we had the Trump attempted assassination, then we had Biden quitting. None of that really lends itself to, like, equities just keep smashing into all-time highs. So I would be a little bit careful with just buy it sentiment at this point. So let's have a look at NQ range. And where is ES? I think I've got ES open somewhere. Yep. Remember guys, this is my travel setup, so sometimes it takes a while to get things going. I usually have like my massive screens and stuff, and this is all just a bit of a compromise. Alright, so IB size is 39 ticks in ES. And the entire session is just barely 64 ticks. So no, that falls under my sort of expected move that we should really have about 100 ticks in the first 2 hours of trading. So that's a no. And it should be probably about 4 times that on something like NQ because it's a faster product. So I ain't buying or selling NQ or ES today. Okay? Rafal says, it's my first time here, so let me ask if you trade supply and demand, because that's what I see on your charts. No, yes and no. I use supply and demand on large time frames. And for intraday trading, I use profile and 2 of my own concepts that relate to time of day and average session, as well as average daily ranges, which is a more common measure. So they're my concepts. And then a whole bunch of stuff in profile that I've kind of taken on from Dalton and from Hogue, what I've learned from Hogue as well, and then moved it up a level, so to really test the stats of some of the setups. And then I also have my twists on those setups. Like for example, I saw somebody a few weeks ago asking Hogue about the auction fade, and he's like, I think that's Dee's setup. And I've simply expanded the idea that if we move away from the initial balance too far, that we cannot really call that a failed auction, because we're not falling back into IB. We're still massively away from that first hour of trading range, so we have to be calling it something else. And I coined the term auction fade. And usually those happen around my average session range levels. So there's like this whole thing of intertwined concepts that work in very nice kind of synchronous way to bring us very good outlook of the market state and situational awareness in real time. So irrespective of, you know, any kind of patterns and stuff, we're literally looking at locations of the price and how the auction is doing. Alright, so on the weekly chart, like if you look at my chart, I can see the large supplies and demand areas, right? I also have my twist on that too. Core Q points, there are tops and bottoms quarters. There's some conditions that need to be filled in order to get the valid Q points. And I'm not going to go into that right now because I'll be here all day. So I do use supply and demand in as a kind of a backbone to the chart location on large time frames. Okay, but when it comes to intraday, when it comes to very small time frames, those zones are unreliable. So the smaller the time frame, the less reliable the concept of true supply and demand is, right? So you have to pair it up with whether we're opening inside or outside balance, right? In balance from yesterday, or are we vastly away from the value area? Is the auction currently strong or weak? Are we building structure? Like, none of that has to do with supply and demand. It has to do with what the price is doing right now, which is why I get a little bit annoyed when people go, oh, market profile doesn't work. It's like, what are you looking at? It's literally just a lens into the market to see how well the market is doing today. What is it not working? What, building structure? It is building structure. Is it trending? Yeah, it's trending. It's like, oh, it doesn't work. Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions out there with the profile because there's so many little concepts inside it. It is a methodology in its own right. And I think a lot of people misread it and misuse it as well. Right, so gold is trying to pop into the value area. So let's just do like a one lot. We've made a new lower low, and there is a danger that we turn into a turn this into a failed auction. But because we already have 3 TPOs on the profile, that means it is building some sort of structure in this area, and now we have a new lower low. So I'm just gonna have a look at the equivolume candles. Because we are below VWAP as well. Okay, so I'm going to bring up my Topstep X. And I'm going to change this now to GC because that's what we're going to be trading. Now I want to see some downside from the market participants. I am unable to open bookmap here because it's like the whole internet here is just not. As soon as I start choking things with a video upload and a whole bunch of things that need to download a bunch of data. Yesterday we started chopping around, so we're gonna have to fly a little bit blind here. So what I'm looking for is just a little bit of commitment to the downside from the sellers after we just popped the low of the initial balancing gold. This is a very low time frame, but I am pairing it up with some kind of volume analysis here. So it's not just like, oh, it's one minute. It's not. It's like 30 minutes developments on the profile and, you know, where we are in relation to the value area and stuff. So I'm looking now at the potential for value acceptance, special situation play, where the market falls back into the value from the previous day and continues to rotate through it. So that is the setup, very clear cut. Alright, so they are kind of stepping in here. And I'm just going to do one lot here. Because we don't quite have the value acceptance just yet. So this is now trying to front run that trade. What is front running? Well, basically you have a level and an idea what should happen at that level, and then you're trying to get ahead of it so that you potentially get a pretty decent trade location. Now obviously if you're wrong, and if these sort of decisions are not really based on any stats or anything that you can repeat, front running a trade is not a good idea. So you would have to wait for some kind of a signal, price action signal, like let's say a bearish engulfing on a 5-minute chart. That can be your trigger, right? So until that appears, there will be no entry into any trade. Okay, so we're getting a bit of commitment now here. Here is Ninja Trader with the lovely equivolume candles. And I've said it before, I don't use volume that much in my trading, but it's not like, you know, I completely shun it. Like, there is a use for it, just not in the way I analyze the open sentiment and whether we're building structure or not. But when it comes to momentum trading, you absolutely want to see some commitment to that side, because without volume, there will be no momentum, right? But I don't like to teach people things that, because it's so discretionary. It's like volume. How much is enough volume? Like what is enough volume? Whenever I can't properly explain something to people, I kind of don't want to teach people that, because I feel that it's all wishy-washy, and then you see a lot of the YouTubers who talk for like an hour, and at the end of it you have no idea what they said. You're like, you haven't actually explained what you do. It's like, you see this here, and you see this here, and now we're getting this here. What? So I'm really annoyed when I see people try to teach others like that, so I try to be as clear as possible. Jason Thompson says, if we open inside our previous day range, but outside previous day value, i.e. DAX today, what can we expect? Okay, let's have a look at DAX, because that is something that I trade quite extensively, actually. It's one of my primary products for London. Alright, so right now we are getting a failed auction here. Now, I wouldn't have gone into this failed auction because we are opening below value. And I was actually expecting to see a test of the value low first without popping to the wrong side. The fact that we have an extension already, the value low still remains an area of interest for shorts, okay, because it's a gap fill. So you close the gap from yesterday. But now you're staring at a neutral day type. What is a neutral day type? It is when the first hour trading range gets extended to both sides. So not just to one side, that immediately spells a potential for a trending day or a failed auction if we don't have momentum in the same direction. But once we've extended it to both sides, it's like somebody dragging an elastic band to both ends. So at some point when you reach a relevant level, if this other side lets go, what do you get? You get the elastic band snapping back to the middle, at the very least. Maybe even rotating all the way back down. So what I will be doing today for DAX, I will be looking at how price behaves around this value low, which is located around 185.87. I forgot my glasses today, so I can't see anything. And yeah, so once we get there, that will be an area for shorts. There we go. So I want to be a seller at that point, right? Now, if we continue upside, there is average session range high just above it. If we overshoot the average session range and we close back inside value, you can actually run a momentum trade through it. So there is scope for longs there, for continued longs, if we can battle through the value area low and actually accept values. Same as gold, but to the other side, so you will be looking for that special situation play. And in that case, because it involves value acceptance, it doesn't really matter much that you've extended to the other side, to the wrong side, right? So those are a couple of hypos. So line in the sand at the value area from yesterday, that is a strong level to look out for any kind of continuations or reversals. So that's if you trade DAX, right? Spencer Hurst says, Deeyana, I have a question. Have you dealt with platform malfunctions during your career of trading, such as chart freezing, order fills, and if you have, has it changed the way you place trades? Yes. So one of my biggest losses was done because my platform froze and I got stuck in a CQG trade that I couldn't get out of. And then when the platform came back, I kept trying to get out of it, but nobody was taking my order because it was FOMC and everything was super thin. And I was in with like a ridiculous amount of contracts. So that was painful that day. So yes, I have dealt with that. It is a normal part of trading, which is why you should always try to have your stops in place, even though if you're trading through news, stops are not respected, okay? Because the market gets so thin. Everybody pulls their orders. There's nobody, like, remember, the trading is a two-part thing, right? For every buy has to be a sell order and vice versa. So if you are in a release where the liquidity is thin, nobody has orders, that's going to be a problem, right? Okay, what is happening here? Let me increase that. We have a bit of a non-committal value acceptance here now. And you can see on the Blatek MP indicator, it says rotation down. Because we did close below it. But there's so far not much initiation below that level. So we'll see if they can actually step back in. But technically, we do now have that value acceptance. One thing that I didn't want to see is this excess on the profile. So I'm actually going to jump out of this because I don't like it. For the value acceptance, we need to see that immediate bounce. This is now a failed auction. So this is one of the rare opportunities to flip a trade. Because you were looking for momentum, didn't quite happen, and you're actually getting momentum to the opposite side. Thereby, value high, remember it's a line in the sand for the outer edge of value. You are looking for either a breakdown of the value high area for a short, or you're looking for value high to bring us a reversal, and in this case, it looks like a failed auction. So this is one of those ambiguous signals where it's like, is it a failed auction? Is it a value acceptance? We don't know. Alright, so let's try the failed auction, assuming the value high is now going to be supportive. So another thing that we want to be looking out for is for the market to pick up volume once it gets to VWAP. So VWAP is just at 2414.6. That's overnight VWAP. That's what I use for London. And if this is going to have any merit for anything, we really need to see initiation through VWAP. So basically price gets to VWAP and starts picking up volume and speed. So what I want to see here is big candles, equi-volume coming in, so thicker candles that indicate there's more volume stepping into the market. And then we can try and run this all the way up to the other side of initial balance, which is somewhere around 24.19. So let's see what happens while I take some more questions. Joe says, hello Dee, I'm from USA EST. What timing for initial bounce in London session? From 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. EST. So I'm starting these sessions slightly later because I'm looking for very particular setups. And contrary to what some people have said, it is not because I'm putting makeup on. It is Like makeup takes like 5 minutes for me. It is because I'm looking for the break of the initial balance, which always happens somewhere about 90 minutes, so about 60 to 90 minutes into the session. So if I was just going to sit here during the initial balance, I would just be sitting here and we could have a nice little chat, but none of my setups will come in. So I decided to run them at the time when we could actually try some trades, because it's always better to illustrate these concepts using live markets, actual real-time charts, trades that we test out, and all that good stuff. So alright, so far there's no initiation here. This is how you'd bail out of trades early, right? If you're looking for something to happen, it just doesn't happen. I've also lowered the risk here to 17 ticks, because I don't want to take a massive hold. This is not the clearest signal. Yes, we might have a failed auction. It's far from a decent signal, and we're not getting initiation to either side at the moment. Like, there's no, shorts are not stepping in, longs are not stepping in. We're just kind of floating in between like 10 ticks range. In the ideal world, I would probably sit out and wait for yet another 30-minute candle to go by before I make my decision, because that brings more information into the market, right? But since I'm only here for an hour, we can't really do that. So Joe has a follow-up question. Is the initial balance for London same for all products? Yes. So the initial balance for London will be the same for everybody. But if you're trading something like COMEX, New York session hours, that's a different thing altogether, right? So COMEX starts an hour earlier than the cash session in equities. NYMEX starts half an hour earlier, and then it's just the initial balance is just 60 minutes from that point on. So just make sure you have those adjustments in the indicators that you're using. Michael says, for me, it's still difficult to decide if I use a pullback for a long or is it a reversal for a short. For example, GC now is a pullback. Very nice to see on the weekly MP. Entry could be a value high 24.11.5. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing here, right? So I'm looking to see whether we have a value acceptance. That was a bit ambiguous and not very clear at all, but we seem to be. So if you look on this equity volume candle, we try to go below this 9 EMA. So this is a very easy way to do timing. We're still below VWAP. So in order to get any sort of initiation of the move, we need to get over VWAP. That's like, without that, VWAP is just going to continue to be a roadblock to further moves. But we had a move below the 9 EMA and below VWAP. So I saw a very flimsy value acceptance, and then immediately buyers stepped in. Look at this fat little candle here. That's a lot of volume, and it brought it right above the 9 EMA and back towards VWAP, which kind of made me think, this is probably looking more like a failed auction now. Which would match, right? So I think one of the issues that you might be struggling with is how to marry the long time frames with the intraday time frames. Am I correct? Because that's what it sounds like. You're like, I don't know how to decide. Well, this is where the profile can decide for you. Are you opening above value? Are we reversing at value high? Or are we continuing into a downward move into a value acceptance? Like right now, we don't really have much information for either of those setups, but just purely because we've been in an uptrend and we made some all-time highs, a value high reversal would make more sense, but what makes more sense isn't always what happens, right? So we have to have hypotheses for both sides of the story. So my hypothesis here is that we either go into failed auction and value high rejection. Failing that, we go back into the value acceptance short and rotate through value. And for that, I need to see a very, very good initiation of the downside movement right now we're not getting either. We're just kind of bouncing in a range. So more information is needed. So rather than committing, what I'm trying to say is rather than to commit to just one direction on the day, and you're just going, I'm just going to go long now because there's a pullback on the daily. Try to go, okay, so where are we right now? Are we above VWAP? Are we below VWAP? Are we above value from yesterday? Are we inside it or below it? Like all of that can give you signs of what the price participants, what the market participants have done intraday, because large time frames have their own story, but there's a lot of stuff that happens intraday that represents mispriced opportunities that we can jump on, and that's the tricky part, to be able to figure out whether the price actually has merit to move back to value intraday. So in market profile, that's all it is. It's looking for market value in the day time frame. So that's all we're doing. So are we too far from value? Are we too far from the initial balance? Are we heading away from value into new price discovery, right? All of that is the purpose of market profile. So it's not an indicator. This is why everybody who uses profile properly and to its full depth will always tell you that it's more of a lens into the market. That's what Hogue always says. So I'm going to repeat it here. It's a tool for reading how the auction process is happening, right? Blute Wolf. Do you specialize in GC? I am technically a commodities trader, so my core specialty is energy markets, so CL and RBOB. But CL has been a little bit quiet this year, so I am going to my second specialty, which is gold. I've traded both gold and crude oil for 11 years, and I know them both to the core, so I consider them my main markets, right? Anything that I add on to that is either related to it, or it's kind of towards the end of the day, and then I might be looking for a short squeeze in equities, for example. So that's one of the trades that I frequently do in ES. And I will usually do that, I mean, sometimes for the last 10 minutes of trading, so I don't do anything else. That would be the only trade that I take. Some of my markets also have the same thing. Okay, so we're flipping and flopping here now. So I'm going to wait and see what happens with gold. Because now some sellers have stepped in. I'm not going to sit here and wait for it. Copper is still very, very quiet, right? Not even going into the initial balance extension. So one of the reasons why I don't want to go into another short here in GC is because we tried twice, right? We tried long, we tried short, and there's no commitment anywhere. It's like, it's like I try long, it doesn't do anything. So we're literally now stuck in a 14 tick range. So until we break out of that range, there's nothing for me to do here. So, I exited early, didn't get a huge loss, it was just like a few ticks, and now we wait for more information. So that was 276, so that's not even 1 hour, that's not even minus 1 hour here. So now we wait. Now I want to see the next TPO exit this whole area. So we either go down or we go above through VWAP. Now if we go through VWAP again, I will want to see something very, very particular on the equity volume candles. So this would be a late entry into a failed auction with the view that we're going to continue at least to the end of the initial balance at 24.18, maybe even this Asia high. That is a common area that people want to test intraday. So that's why I'm not too worried about entering the failed auction a little bit later. But I want to see some momentum. Like, this is so boring now, guys. Like, we're not moving to any new levels. Like, I'm trying to find trades, but it's like, no. And, you know, to be fair, gold isn't rollover, so I don't expect, you know, any kind of fireworks or anything. YM is failing the auction. But again, struggling around VWAP. So until, like, VWAP tends to be a pretty nice directional indicator. If we are going to go into a true failed auction on YM, again, we need to cross over in this area here. Okay, so nothing for me to do. Let me answer questions because this is what you'll have in trading, a lot of waiting around. AHZ Trading says, what's your risk management in 50K? How do you apply it? Well, everybody has a different style, right? I might trade very differently from you. But one thing to take on from doing the combine seriously is that you shouldn't really risk more, I say more than 1/10 of the initial daily loss limit. So whatever your daily loss limit is, cut that to 10. That gives you 10 days straight, 10 straight losing days before you're going to blow out of a combine. So that's how I would do it. So that number would be $200, maybe 250, you know. However many trades that you do in a day, divide the number of trades with the 250, 200 daily loss limit. And that becomes your personal risk per trade. Because everybody's different. Some people do 1 trade a day. Some people do 40, you know. So you have to put that into perspective. And that way you get your personal daily loss limit and your risk per trade as well. So hopefully that helps. Chris Love says, hi Dee, I have a question for you. Do you use 2 TPO profiles in regular trading hours and in out of hours? If so, when do you start and end your session times? I think this probably pertains more for London because I cut off London at the start of the next major session. So if we're talking gold, I will typically have that. I'll show you my session schedules on Blotic MP. So this is my London session. It's in my time. So this is 8 a.m. till 1:30 p.m. when we have the COMEX starting, right? So I cut it off at the start of the next major session because then the volumes are bigger, different players are stepping into the market, and in some of our tests when we were doing like mechanical trading systems, especially in the beginning, we messed around with the entire London, so 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. And the test just didn't, like the value areas did not work as well, and in some cases didn't work at all when you mixed and matched. So when we went into the overlap and we tried to smush in the big volume that comes in at COMEX, it just didn't work out. So this idea that we're going to cut off the times for London at the next session start time, and suddenly value highs, value lows from the outer side, it all started working out a lot better. So this is why I've kept that, and that's how I teach it. You know, some other people, they might be like, oh yeah, why teach the entire London? Yes, but I think there's like data pollution when you're mixing and matching sessions. So I don't like that purely from like a coding perspective. You wouldn't mix and match different sessions. Like, what does that give you? Maybe for swing trading that might be fine, but we have a time constraint as intraday traders. You know, I can't wait endlessly for my setup from London to work out because the name of the game changes halfway through the day, right? You have a lot more volume, participants, different players with some very different outlooks when it comes to geopolitical events. So why would we mix that? So that's my take on it. And for crude oil, I cut it off obviously at NYMEX start, which at my time is 2 p.m. So hopefully that helps. Postman Max says, what do you think of crude oil longs now? Yesterday we rejected the end of a 4-hour measured move and now breaking out of yesterday's value. Yeah, so I'm an intraday trader, right? So I don't really need to know what crude oil is going to be doing tomorrow, next week, 3 months from now, right? I'm not looking for a position trade in gold, in crude oil, or in any of these products for that matter. All I want is an opportunity that I can take advantage of over the next sort of 30 minutes to maybe an hour or so. Whatever happens after that, I'm totally not interested, right? So that's the beauty of being an intraday trader. Alright, so one last attempt at this short in gold, because this is now a value acceptance, and I'm going to increase size a little bit here, and also plop in my usual stop loss. Okay, and we're looking at about, let me see how much space I've got. 66 ticks to the average session range low. I'm going to put 65 ticks. Okay, so let's hope we get some momentum here now. I'm in with 600 on this, but again, if it doesn't quite pick up momentum, I am going to be taking it off. And this is now 2 lots because we finally have some information that we can fall back on with a reasonable amount of certainty. So another red candle popping into a lower low and going into that value acceptance with a little bit more speed and momentum. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so crude oil, that's what I was looking at. Crude oil longs. I am not looking at, like I said, I'm not looking at anything in particular in crude oil right now because obviously this is an out-of-hour session. All I can tell you right now is that we have a potential for a gap fill. So we are opening below value and we opened a little bit outside of yesterday's range, which means gap rules apply. So until we go back to value low, I would not be looking for shorts. So right now, for this particular time of day, yes, longs are definitely in control. But at the same time, crude oil is a very double-sided instrument. So you can have the same day where you go up 100 ticks and then it turns around and you go down 150 ticks. So just because you're seeing longs during London can actually be a counter trend indicator for the New York session. So consider that. There's usually, statistically speaking, some sort of a reversal in crude oil after the initial balance is finished for NYMEX. So just because we're seeing longs now, it means absolutely nothing because of the double-sided nature of crude oil. And we saw it yesterday, right? It fell. Let's go back. This was the New York session, NYMEX session. So initial balance got established. We went all the way down, hit the average session range low, which is my concept, my area, because it's based in statistical observations. We turned around, went all the way back to the initial balance and settled there. That was the end of the market. Because settlement happened, let me just see what time of day. Oh, can't even see that. Settlement was somewhere around this area here. So yeah. So it doesn't have to mean, you know, now we're seeing longs for London, that's going to continue. Markets are not that single directional, right? In fact, if you get a single direction day where it just shoots up and then New York steps in and it continues to shoot up, that's also not normal, right? That's not a normal trading day. Normal trading day is ebbs and flows to both sides. Okay, so Zero Fox says, does the term failed auction always imply a failed move to the downside, or is the term bidirectional? Bidirectional, you can have a failed auction to both sides. But just be careful how you... okay, so if we have the failed auction to one side, like it is bidirectional, it can happen to either side, okay? So that's important to know. Second thing is, if you find that... did this gold just go back up? Yeah, okay. Alright, I'm gonna stop trading here for the day, because this is just rollover nonsense. But I am gonna leave this stop loss, so if it hits me, it hits me, whatever. Because at the moment this is just nonsense. It's like it's chopping up and down in a very tight range. It's like, oh, we have buyers. Oh no, we have sellers. Oh no, we have buyers again. Oh no. It's like, Jesus Christ, make up your mind. And when you start getting that, that's the market not actually committing to any side. So try 3 times. So 3 strikes and I'm out. There is nothing else for me to do here. So we're not getting commitment to either side of the market. Yeah, so the failed auction is bidirectional. So it can fail either to longs or to shorts. But once we've already extended the move to one side and failed it, the next extension is not yet another failed auction. It's then just a neutral rotational day. And why is that important? Because the true failed auction carries the implication that the price is going to rotate all the way to the other side of the initial balance, all the way to where it came from, right? But when you have a neutral day type and you see the price struggling to the other side of the initial balance, the likelihood is that it's not going to yet again traverse completely and rotate yet again to the other side, right? So you have to modify your target expectations, because in that case, you're effectively looking at a mean reversion trade that should be taken off, kind of like Anne-Marie does it. So some sort of a mean reversion down to either VWAP or point of control or anything that's kind of the middle of the middle, right? So you have to delineate between a failed auction and then a mean reversion setup in a neutral day type situation. But yes, failed auction can be bidirectional, so it can happen either downside failed auction or upside failed auction. How many trades do you personally take for in a day? James wants to know. Typically, if I'm trading through a couple of sessions, maybe about 5 to 9. If I'm only trading one session, that would be more like 3 or 4. So not many, really not many. Reading group says, or reading group, I don't know whether it's reading group or reading group. Hey Dee, a few months ago I messaged you and you gave me some tough love regarding my overtrading. Yep, that sounds like me. I took your advice to heart, wrote it down, and I'm now doing a lot better with my first 150k XFA. Well done, man. This is awesome. So I love reading things like this, because this is what it's all about, right? We are all here doing TopstepTV to try and help the larger trading community and to show you guys that there is a better way than Lambo rule. Yeah, so reading these sort of messages, that is really why we're here. And there's nothing that warms my heart more than when somebody says, hey, took your advice, oh my god, I'm doing so well. You know, knowledge not shared is knowledge lost, right? So I'm gonna leave it there for today, because it's like, it's okay to make money and to do well in life and everything, but at the end of the day, if all you're going to do is just like hoard cash and just not share the knowledge and experience that you've gained on the way there, like, what are we even doing? So I'd like to think that everybody who's involved with Topstep, we have that, altruistic side where we do want to help people because there is a better way to do this. And hopefully we can help a lot more people, get you guys funded, and get you another source of income. That's what it's all about. Alright, let me check whether we have anything else happening. No. So, and just out of interest, did it shake me out? Oh my god, guys, I'm still in. Alright, I'm gonna leave this gold trade to do its thing. Like, obviously it's a very slow day, so I will update what happens to it on Twitter, and I will post my stats as I've been doing over the last few days. I mean, I did say yesterday on Marcus Talking with Dee that this 100% win rate of days cannot last too long, because that's out of my own statistical expectancy. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the gold trade. I am going to leave it to run. So it is still inside the value area, so it's still trying to go to the other side. Maybe it just needs a little bit of push from the overlap. So I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let it do what it does. That is it for now. I will see you tomorrow, and actually let's have a little topic for tomorrow. I'm going to try and explain how I use Bookmap, because I'm going to be back in my normal home office hopefully tomorrow without banging and sanding machines. So I can actually open it up and show you some events. And even though London is not nearly as crazy as New York, we're going to try and find some examples of the events that can happen quite visibly in Bookmap that you may not be immediately able to see on the regular price chart. Even though it's similar, it just provides you more of a real-time feedback of the momentum and what the market participants might be doing. So I thought that would be a good topic to have. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. It was great seeing everybody. So Redding Group is saying, it really helped me. I'm always very isolated in my job and my trading, but hearing you say something along the lines of, what the hell are you doing? Really made me rethink my approach. Yeah, sometimes some tough love is what we all need, and in the long run it might be difficult to hear, but it's something we need to hear to get better. Alright guys, so I'm signing off now. I will see you tomorrow for a little Bookmap session, because that seems to be something that a lot of people are interested in. Thank you for joining me. We're going to continue these London sessions from Monday to Thursday every day at 3 a.m. Eastern. 3:30 a.m. Chicago time, me and my time zone, so 3:30 a.m. CT, which is 9:30 a.m. London. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.